In this Circuits of the Past video, we're looking to answer the following question. Was the Nivelles Circuit a boring racetrack? For those who have never heard about the Nivelles Circuit before, first, the story in brief. The Nivelles Circuit in Belgium opened in 1971 as a safer alternative for the old Spa-Francorchamps. The track was designed by Dutchman John Hugenholtz, who also designed great circuits like Suzuka and Jarama. Nivelles hosted the Belgian Grand Prix just twice, in 1972 and 1974. Both races were run by Emerson Fittipaldi. However, soon the circuit was in financial trouble and couldn't host the Formula One races anymore, and it finally closed for good in 1981. After its closure, it was used for illegal racing. Attempts to revive the circuit sadly failed, and in 1998 the demolition of the abandoned circuit started. Sadly, today it's now been transformed into a business park. The Circuit of Nivelles is often depicted as a flat and boring circuit, mostly by people who've never touched it or driven on it. They're just parroting each other, and they parrot the same view of it being flat with just a few slow corners. This, though, is absolutely not true. So, let's do some myth busting, shall we? Ha! Herman to the rescue. Okay, first myth up. Let's bust it. Nivelles wasn't flat. Although it wasn't exactly a mountain track like Spa-Francorchamps, there were elevations all around the track, as you can see on these pictures, taken by Herman in the spring of 1998. By the way, the guy we refer to, Herman, is Herman Lischmeyer, the founder of the Circuits of the Past website and YouTube channel. His visit in 1998 to the abandoned Nivelles Circuit inspired him to start this website about lost tracks in 2003. So, Circuits of the Past originated literally from the Nivelles Circuit. So even if you don't agree, you've got a lot to answer for, Nivelles. My name is Simon Smith, I just do the voiceovers. I've also got a gaming channel on YouTube called Higher Plane Games if you're interested. Myth number 2 to be popped. Contrary to the popular belief, Nivelles actually had a really fast layout, with some fast corners that included a double right-hander and a fast chicane at the end of the back straight. Despite these elevations and fast corners, the Nivelles circuit was just not popular with the 1970s Formula One drivers. And that's because it had 3 things counting up against it. The first of those was the fact that it was replacing the old Spa-Francorchamps, which was, and still is today, one of the most spectacular race circuits in the world. When Spa's your competition, you aren't going to prove popular. The second issue was its limited length of 3.7 kilometres or 2.3 miles, which when in combination with the high-speed layout meant that the lap times were around 1 minute 10 seconds, which during the 1970s was really short for its time. Although it was great for spectators, getting to see the cars going round and round and round, it wasn't for the drivers because all they saw were the same 9 old corners again and again and again, just like today's Red Bull Ring. Funnily enough though, that would probably fit in quite nicely with today's Formula One. The design actually foresaw a longer track of 3.5 miles, but the circuit owners could not buy all of the land required all at once, so they decided to purchase what they could, build a shorter circuit first, with the idea to complete it with the other ground purchase later on. This proved to be the first major miscalculation for the Nivelles circuit, because once the circuit was open, the landowner wanted more money because it was now prized possessions. The circuit owners couldn't bring up that money, and so the circuit was never really officially completed. The third thing the Nivelles circuit had against it was its excellent safety. Yep, that may sound strange now, but the circuit was way ahead of its time in terms of safety. It was pioneering large runoff areas, which were considered less exciting for drivers compared to what they were used to in those days, and the public, because of those large runoff areas, were farther away from the action. However, it could also be argued that the same was said about the reinvented Nürburgring at the German Grand Prix there when it opened in 1984. In a time that drivers were accustomed to exciting but also ridiculously dangerous sometimes racetracks like the old Spa-Francorchamps or the old Nürburgring, this safe circuit was perceived as boring, and in contrast to the Formula 1 drivers of today, the drivers of the 70s often said what they thought. What's really interesting here is the perception of time and how standards and opinions change over it, because Hockenheim also proved really unpopular with drivers when that came on to replace the old Nürburgring. Then Hockenheim became a fan favourite, and when it was changed in 2002 to be modified into a quote-unquote modern circuit, the old one was immediately missed by almost everyone. And yet that was considered a neutered version of previous tracks. How things change. Despite the poor image, Nivelles certainly had some very challenging corners. As I said earlier, the track was designed by John Hugenholtz. He's also the director for Zandvoort from 1949 through to 1974, and some sections of Nivelles seem to be inspired by Zandvoort in a way. There was a very fast double right-hander, which reminds us of the old Schivlac corner and the original Bosquet corner. There's also a replica of the famous Tarzan corner at Nivelles too. The double right-hander was called the Big Loop. Fortunately, this section survived and is now part of the business park, so we can show you some onboard footage. The Big Loop started after the first corner with a short descending straight. Diving onto the straight, you saw the first corner appearing right in front of you. It was a long, slightly uphill bend. The second corner was even longer and looked similar to the Schivlac corner at Zandvoort, but even faster. Like the Schivlac corner, this corner started at the top of a hillock and descended first. At 2/3 of the corner, the track slightly goes uphill again. Another fast combination was the chicane at the end of the back straight. Sadly, this part has been lost. But not so long ago it was left abandoned, so we've got some footage of it. Today they're extending the business park here. During his 2019 visit, Hermann encountered the police here on the abandoned remains of the track. You can watch that footage also on the Circuits of the Past YouTube channel. By the way, if you want to support Circuits of the Past to keep memories alive of these lost racetracks, you can now join us on Patreon, and your name will appear in the videos. You can also make a single tip or donations to paypal.me/Circuits of the Past. So, was the Nivelles Circuit a boring racetrack? In the eyes of 1970s Formula 1 drivers, perhaps it was. But by today's standards, it would actually be a very cool track to race on, much better than most modern circuits designed by a certain namesake of the founder of this YouTube channel. He who shall not be named. In a time where Formula 1 races are becoming more stop-and-go circuits, or being built around monuments and landmarks rather than actually being designed for racing, a corner combination like the Big Loop would be a welcome addition to the calendar. But unfortunately, despite these great corners, Nivelles went into history as a boring circuit. We're sure that there's some other circuits that probably fit unjustifiably into this category, so if you can think of others, drop them down in the comments below. If you want to see more footage of the Nivelles circuit, then check out some of the other videos of Nivelles on our channel. And if you want to read about it and its history, as well as seeing some photos that Hermann made during some of his visits to the abandoned track, please visit the website www.circuitsofthepast.com. There you can also download a free ebook about 7 abandoned circuits that you can visit legally. For now though, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on the next video from another bygone circuit from the past.